Welcome everyone to Hearts with Nate Frazier. God bless everybody today. The viewers that are tuning in, I always like to give a shout out to all the viewers, to all the supporters, to all the sponsors on this program. I'm so excited today because I have with me today Elizabeth Dejesus in Greensboro.
Yeah.
If I have a little hard time pronouncing the last name, the mother is here today, so she will correct it. But today we're going to be going in depth of the Dejesus Brothers case. And been a lot of talk about it. It's been some years, but we have the mother here today. We have Greg Myrtle here today, who prepared the documentary. So welcome to Hearts with Nate Frazier. Glad to have both of you here today.
Thank you.
I want to start off with this. As I, looked at the documentary, also read over the documentary. It says, on the day of July the 11th, 1995, the lady by the name of Margaret Midcliffe, correct, was found dead in the basement of her family home. And it sent shockwaves throughout the close-knit community of Pontiac, Michigan. Two brothers were tried and wrongly convicted. Melvin Dejesus, okay, who was 24, the other brother George, who was 18 at the time of the crime. A lot of things transpired throughout this investigation. One thing that really stands out is when the perpetrator became the star witness for the prosecutor. But we will get more into that in more detail when I talk to Greg Myrtle, who looked into this case inside and out, correct?
Absolutely.
Crossed his T's, dotted his I's. He is the one that put the wrongful conviction documentary together for the brothers. But first, I want to talk with you and tell me a little bit more about your two sons, how they were raised, what kind of household they come from, and a little bit more about their character.
Well, I believe that they came from a very close family. My husband and I came here to Michigan back in the 60s.
Okay.
And so they were born and they grew up in Michigan. And we taught them how to be very family oriented. They grew up God's fear because they grew up going to church, and as they grew older, I think they have a very nice family setting.
Okay.
With lots of love, and we were a very close family.
Okay. Let me ask you this question too. In their teenage years, were they part of a gang? Were they two young boys that were troubled kids?
I didn't see it as a gang.
Okay.
And I didn't see it as they were like troubled boys.
Okay.
They used to gather at my house with a lot of their friends, which I didn't see anything wrong because I'd rather see them around my house than
Correct.
out on the street.
Okay.
So they used to go out and party, whatever you call it, But I guess a lot of people see it as gang, but
Okay.
it was not really a gang. It was like a group of kids getting together.
Okay. And I'm just asking you this question because I want the viewers to, get an understanding, and the reason why I'm asking you this question is I just want to hear, a little bit about the boys, a little bit about their character, and who they were.
Okay.
And those are just, general questions I would like to ask you because I'm reading even part of the documentary, they said something about, gang related.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sons, I guess, had a picture. I guess he was 14 years old.
Yes.
Yeah, had a picture with a gun in his hand. So I guess they even used that as to went back there when he was 14, and it portrayed that was the type of person that he was. So just trying to get a little brief.
Okay, about any of that, I knew what was going on my house.
Correct.
When they get together, there was other things that I didn't know.
Correct.
Obviously,
Correct.
if I knew about it, I would have stuck.
Exactly.
Stuck to it.
Right.
But I believe, as of Georgie was telling me, it was something that he was doing. It had nothing to do with the case.
Exactly.
It was a picture that he took when they were together, and
right.
And they used that, but I don't
right.
think it had nothing to do with the case.
With the case, yeah.
They just used it.
Yeah, and I imagine that because a lot of times, just like the other case that I covered, they went back,
Absolutely.
And took that and used that as a weapon, as a leverage to make them look a certain way and paint an image, and I definitely understand.
Just to give a little
what you're saying.
Just to give a little background, what the prosecution did was they went back 2 years prior to the crime and found a picture, a very menacing picture of George in a menacing pose. He must have been, 15, 16 years at the time, and he was holding 2 guns in a bravado pose. And again, they used that to paint this picture of this evil killer, which it had absolutely zero to do with the case.
Exactly. Right. And I understand. Definitely understand.
Thank you.
In the documentary, Vernon Dapper, or Daper,
Vernon
Daper in the documentary has stated that he is a cop.
I forget his last name, but he wrote a book and he investigated.
Dapper.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the
Okay.
last name. It was some. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
He was a lieutenant commander for the New York Police Department,
right.
and he was doing his own book on police tactics and investigations. And this is one of the cases that he covered and made us privy to a lot of information that we didn't have access to. So we had direct contact with the investigators. There was a lot of things that he put out in this book that, again, we weren't familiar with.
Okay.
So we used his book along with the testimony, trial testimony, the police reports, the actual footage, a lot of things that didn't come out in the courtroom. We used those things to put together the documentary. I've had the prosecution come back to me and said that a lot of things in the documentary were untrue. I've asked her, show me where I lied, and I'd correct the record.
Okay.
I haven't heard from her.
Okay, so she said a lot of things, and your documentary was untrue.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to definitely get more into that. The victim, she was 43 years old at the time. Said she was raped and brutally murdered in her own home. This woman was raped both ways. Now, am I correct to say this woman was your neighbor?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
She was my neighbor.
And a good friend of yours,
a very good friend. I got her a job where I worked.
She was her boss.
Her team leader, yes.
She was your boss?
No, other way around.
Oh, you were her boss.
I was
okay.
her team leader.
Okay.
Team leader. So I got her a job, and Margaret was a very nice lady. She worked hard. She was a hard worker.
Okay.
And she was very straight.
And she was familiar, so she's familiar with your family.
Yes, she
and
was.
familiar with your kids. Now, am I correct to say that she babysit some of your kids when they were young?
Yes, there were some times that I would go someplace and she would watch them.
Okay. And before I go talk to Greg, it's been, 18 years or 19 years?
22.
22 years?
22.
It's been 22 years. What has that done to you? What has that done to your family? And knowing that your sons were wrongly convicted. We hear it so much. And a lot of times these things are so difficult. And I understand, when you're going up before an appeal, you get one shot. So you got to, go in. Am I correct? You get one chance to go in, and you got to have everything together before you even go. Now, is the Innocent Project on it?
Absolutely, they're on it.
Okay.
If we're going to talk about the case, let's kind of set it up for the viewers to kind of let them know exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. Trust me.
Because we're talking about details of the case, they don't really know exactly the nature of the crime, so I don't want to put the cart before the horse here.
Okay. But before after this, how did it affect you and your family?
Emotionally and financially, it's been a nightmare. And it's like you never believe, or it's like it's hard to explain that the people are out there that being wrongfully convicted. You really have to feel the effect of the wrongful conviction to understand. It's a very heartbroken situation. We try to do so much and to demonstrate that they are innocent. There's a lot of times that we just hit to the wall because there's no other way to go. But nevertheless, I will not quit. It doesn't matter. It will take my last breath. I will continue to fight until my kids are out.
Great. All right, great, Merle. Let's talk about this documentary that you put together. First of all, what really made you look into this case?
I have a little bit of a police background. A few years ago, Elizabeth came to me and asked me, to take a look at the case. I remember the case back then, and me, like most people, said that I thought to myself, there had to be something there. These guys were convicted. They had a jury trial, and I really didn't have a firm grasp on there being a whole lot of wrongful convictions. And as I looked at the case, I'm like, this is just wrong. That poor mother. And so she asked me for my help, and I looked at the case, and I kind of threw my hands up, like, what can I do?
Okay.
And it sat for, the trial literally sat next to my bed for probably a year. And one night my wife couldn't sleep. She's going through it. She's like, these guys are innocent. I was like, oh, all right. I got nothing better to do. Let me look at it again and see what we can come up with. So we put together the documentary. It took probably, this is a 1-2-man team here to put that together. And normally people will have, full staff to put something like that together. It was a good 2 months out of my life of 10, 12-hour days, because it's a lot of tedious work that goes into it.
Okay.
But it's not really about me. It was about telling their story. So I incorporated the brothers, got their own voices.
Okay.
Telling their own story, and I just kind of filled in the blanks, little research, and just making sure everything I put into the documentary was accurate as much as possible. Okay. So it's gotten quite a response. The documentary is called The Hail Mary Plea. You can find it on YouTube. It's a half hour. It's probably got 6,000 views, and it's created quite a stir in the Pontiac community. It's even reached its way to Lansing. The prosecutor is Donna Pendergast.
Okay.
And at that time, she was in Oakland County. She's moved up. She's presently an assistant attorney general for Schuette, who's running for something, a governor now.
Right.
So she wasn't too thrilled with the documentary. But again, I asked her. She threatened to sue me. I said, "Tell me when I lied. I'll correct the record." I haven't heard back from her.
So this is the prosecutor
right.
that tried the case, found convicted. So you came out with your documentary, and the information that you put out there, she totally disagreed with it. Like, that's totally wrong, and threatened to sue you.
But she has to tell me where I was wrong.
Never told you where you were wrong at.
No, because again, the information there came directly from the actual court records and testimony.
So these documents that you got.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
I even showed some of them in the document.
Okay. All right. Well, they don't lie.
Yeah. Right.
Can you tell the viewers about how? And this what really got to me when I started reading the documentary. I'm like, this guy that became the star witness is a monster.
Oh, absolutely.
And can you tell the viewers how this guy became their star witness?
Well, essentially, he was caught dead to rights. His semen was found on the scene and in the body of the victim, Margaret Midkiff. He had nowhere to go. He knew he was going to serve a life term imprisonment. So he had to come up with a plan. Again, it's called the Hail Mary plea, because he's kind of throwing a Hail Mary pass and trying to get out of this jackpot that he's in. So he had to put the blame on someone else. He knew the Dejesus Brothers. He knew they lived right next door. Because of their, I can't really soften it, but the checkered criminal history. I mean, they drank a lot, they smoked marijuana. A lot of kids did. We're not trying to justify it, but they were good scapegoats.
Okay.
And he put the murder on them. He's saying that, or he testified that all three of them went into the Midkiff home, and the two brothers raped, or rather insisted that he raped the woman, and then they went on to murder her. I mean, and there was no motive whatsoever. Again, this was a family friend of the Dejesus family.
Okay.
But for somehow, I mean, the jury believed his testimony. He went into detail in his testimony, and then we were just recently finding out that his previous recordings to the police department were contradicting his testimony on the stand.
Okay.
So that's another avenue that we could pursue. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of that one.
So this guy also was he a part of 5 previous rapes I was reading where when the doctor he stated that he told one of the victims that, you know, either we're gonna do this or you're gonna end up in the bushes dead.
Right, and that's part of one of the police reports. We were able to find at least 4 women that he had sexually assaulted in the past, and for whatever reason,
how was this guy walking around?
Exactly. He wasn't prosecuted on those cases. In every occasion, the woman retracted their statements.
Threat?
I'm sure there were threats involved. You know, Gohagan is said to have, you know, I mean, even in one of the police reports, he threatened to leave one of the women for dead. They find her in the bushes, which is exactly how they found another one of his victims. And we found this out just, I mean, he was prosecuted on this just a couple of years ago.
Now, this guy was a friend of the brothers, correct?
Yes.
And so he just outright, when that took place, just turned on them, used them as the scapegoat. Far as alibis, where were your sons at the time of when the murder took place?
One brother was with his girlfriend, and the father of the girlfriend even signed an affidavit saying, Melvin was with my daughter on the night of the murder. And then the other son, Georgie, he was at a party with her, and there was a room full of witnesses there.
Okay.
So I mean,
that still didn't.
No. Pretty much the jury relied on testimony.
What about DNA?
The only DNA found on the scene tied Brandon Gohagan to the murder. There was no DNA found on the Dejesus brother whatsoever. So I mean, that is what it is.
What is his sentence?
Well, at present it's life, but at the time his plea bargain allowed him to get out after 36 years. So I mean, he would have been halfway there had he not been committed for another rape, murder, assault.
Okay. Do you feel like it's a reason? This case is so familiar to the VC Brothers case. Do you feel like there was a reason that like do you feel like somebody had to pay for this? So they want to go ahead and say, okay, we got this guy right here. And he's saying these 2 brothers did it. So we're going to just zero in on these 2 brothers, even though they know his history. He has a criminal history and for some terrible crimes, but they used him. Do you think that they were out for your sons? Was it personal? Because I'm trying to figure out, and this would mess me up with the last case, how can the system use somebody with that type of background, known to be a liar, known to be, brutal rapes and things like that, then turn around and use them against someone to get a conviction? Do you feel like, as you prepare the documentary, do you feel like they just had to get a conviction regardless of who it was?
I think so. The prosecutor, Diana Pendergast, she was trying to make a name for herself. She was relatively young in her career, and she's moved up. She likes to call herself the murder prosecutor of Michigan or something.
Really?
Something to that effect.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a devil in disguise.
Yeah, her legal opponents have called her the devil incarnate. She'll do whatever it takes to get a conviction.
Yes.
Just from knowing what we know and the research that we've done, we knew for a fact that she had to know that her witness was lying on the stand, just based on his previous interviews and the inconsistencies based in his testimony.
That's what I'm saying. Did the guy Brandon Gohagan, did he take a lie detector's test?
I think he did.
I believe it was inconclusive, but I haven't seen anything official. I haven't seen, as far as lie detector tests, I haven't seen anything. So no, I don't think so.
Did your sons take a lie detector's test?
Yes, again, inconclusive. And again, these things, I mean,
it depends on the questions that they ask.
I was in the police academy, and the lie detector test. Yeah, I mean, I remember they started coming in and talking about lie detector tests, and he bragged. This guy administers these tests. He said he can get any result he wants, based on how he phrases the questions.
That is so accurate.
There's a reason those are admissible in court.
Yes.
So yeah, I wouldn't put too much weight in any lie detector test. But again, the brothers did have a test administered, and from what I understand, it was also inconclusive.
Okay. Did they do DNA too with your sons?
Yes, they did.
And it didn't even come up.
No.
So this guy saying he raped him. He said something about he went back outside, and after he did what he did, and your two sons were left there, and he said when he came back, then she was murdered.
Yeah.
Right.
That was his statement.
There were some times that he said that he went to the basement. There were some times that he said that he went outside. So either he was inside and he watched them doing it, he said that, or he went outside because he was afraid. So he lied.
Definitely he lied.
Definitely too many stories.
Right. And that's, you know being, I know he was only a police officer for only 6 months, very short period of time. But I want to ask you, because like you said at that time, I guess you said you weren't as familiar with wrong conviction cases. And so you doing this one, and now you getting to the point where you're understanding that it's out here, and it's out here a lot.
It's real.
It is real. Everybody in prison is not guilty, and that's real. But the sad part about it is like the prosecutor wanted to make her name for herself. So it's like, does life matter? Because it's like, oh no, I want to, prosecute or get this case. I want to win this case because I want to be the prosecutor. No matter, like, life doesn't matter. You got to think about two young men that are innocent, and it's like their life is totally taken away from them. And then you get a jury trial. The jury trial listens to the information and the back and forth testimonies. You got this guy here. I mean, I'm asking, was the jury looking at this guy? Do they know who this guy is? Do they even know his background? And that this is guy up here that have done some brutal things. And explain to me.
I'm not sure if the jury knew about his previous rape allegations.
They were not allowed.
They were not allowed. Okay.
They were not allowed.
They didn't hear about that. So
is that fair? I mean, certain things you can allow to win your case. Some things that may hurt your case, that's admissible. What do you feel about that? Just looking at this documentary. Doing this documentary. What do you really feel about that?
I would think any competent defense attorney would try to impeach that witness and try to bring up their previous, allegations. I'm not really sure why or how that happened. I can only assume that the judge just didn't allow it. He also didn't allow any mentions of previous gangs. However, the prosecutor managed to sneak it in, pretending it wasn't a mistake by one of her witnesses, which was the victim's son, who was also part of that group that hung out with the Dejesus Brothers and Brandon Gohagan. All those guys were friends.
Yeah. Okay. Because we didn't have much time to prepare. The lawyers didn't have that much time to prepare for the case.
Were your sons represented well, or was it through the system?
Through the system.
Okay. And you know, and I want to say this too, because, and I'll tell anybody, just like the VC brothers, they were represented through the system.
Oh yeah.
One of them. So when you represented through the system, I can only keep it real. Your chances, especially on something of that nature, are really slim and none to be properly represented, and someone that's really going to fight for you, because the people in the system, these attorneys in the system, to me, their goal is to what? Really to get you to plea bargain.
Oh, yeah,
they don't
absolutely.
tell you, we're going to fight for this. No, you just better go ahead and take that, because, you know, this is what could happen. This, because if they're not fighting for you, it's just... Now, I understood back in the 60s, I think, or 70s, if this is true, that back then, if you was charged of a felony, they gave you a real attorney. Do you know anything about that?
I mean, you get a real attorney, but how hard is he going to work for you? I mean, the state's going to pay him $1,000 to work a 2-week trial. Meanwhile, I mean, I believe I remember you telling me that someone said he could win this case no problem. Give me $35,000. Who's got $35,000 liquid?
Exactly.
Especially it was two of them, and it was like unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, a 2-week trial. I mean, 2 weeks to prepare for a trial on a murder trial is not. I mean, and then the prosecution had a couple years to prepare.
Okay.
So. I mean,
So how long did the trial go?
A week.
It was a week.
Just a week.
Monday through Friday.
That quick? They came to a verdict that quick on
2
something
hours.
of that nature. 2 hours. When you went back and you looked at all the testimonies and things like that, and all the statements, what did you think? Did you like, how could this happen?
It was very eye-opening. Again, I have to look at myself, and just when I heard about the case, I'm like, well, they had to do something. There had to be some type of evidence. But really, there was nothing there. No DNA, no circumstantial. I mean, they had alibis. No motive. I mean, those are the primary things you need to convict someone of murder. You got to figure out why someone wants to kill someone. It's next door neighbor. They used to be their babysitter.
Exactly.
That makes no sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. Had a good relationship, and you had a, good relationship with her too.
Yeah,
once again,
it was nothing. It was like when Margaret was very honest, and she was very she cared. Mm-hmm. So if there was something wrong, if there was, like they said, it was that she had trouble with my sons, she would say something to me.
Okay.
Because we were that close, we were together, and anything that she sees out of my house, she'll let me know. Okay. So if there was any trouble that she had with my boys, she would let me know, because she was a very honest and care person. So they lie on that one too. There was never no trouble between her and my sons.
Oh, see, okay.
They used to go to her house.
So the prosecutor said that there were trouble. She made it seem like it was trouble between her and you. Okay.
Yeah, absent a motive, the prosecution came up with this ridiculous theory that her son wanted to get out of their little group, their little gang, and Margaret's son,
okay,
the victim's son,
okay,
wanted to get out of their so-called gang.
Okay.
And his punishment had to be that her sons had to kill the mother. It was.
Oh my God.
It was a ridiculous theory. But for somehow the jury bought it. I don't know.
Now in the documentary, one of the brothers came home. They found the son, which was he said was his friend, mm-hmm, was weeping, crying, said, "Hey, I just found my mother, dead," and it said it shot your son. It's like, wow, who would do something like this?
They were together.
Yeah,
they found each other, and they were supposed to go by the tent.
Okay.
And they went to the house first.
After that murder took place, how long was it when law enforcement came in, and I understand they came to your house? Was it a day later, 2 days later, 3 days later? How long was it before the law enforcement came in at your house and ramshacked it, understood, threw your husband on the floor?
I think it was about a year.
A year later?
A year later, right?
So they had no evidence whatsoever there.
No.
They didn't even have a clue. And it took them a year to come up with a theory that, okay, now we got enough to go in, as they put it together. As a theory, though.
Yeah, but for the life of me, I don't even know how they were able to get a search warrant.
Wow.
I mean, you need certain factors in place to get a search warrant, and how that happened, I don't know.
Can you explain a little bit more in detail when you said you need certain things to get a search warrant?
I mean, just the basic elements of the crime. I mean, you got to figure out
some type of physical evidence or something.
Right. You got to go before the judge and explain why you think you feel the need to invade this person's rights and go into their home and search for evidence. There has to be a reason for it. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what they told the judge to get that ability to go in the house. Yeah.
And when they went in there, absolutely nothing. They found nothing. So even after that, did they take your sons and detain them?
Yes, they did, but then they let them go.
They let them go.
One of them.
One of them.
Yeah, one of them had a previous warrant for violating his curfew, so they kept him until the actual trial. And then Melvin, the older brother, he was released after questioning.
Okay. So he was released.
Right.
Then after they came back a year later, once they came up with their false evidence, and when they got him.
And that was
so
that was the hard one, because they went to the hospital where his girlfriend was in labor, and they took him from there.
While his girlfriend was in labor, they went to the hospital and took him from there. Are you serious?
Yes. So I stayed in the hospital, and the next morning I missed his arrangement because it was like, where do I go? Do I stay with with his girlfriends because the baby was ready to born, or do I go to court? So I stayed with her. So that was a very emotional part of the trial too, because he saw his daughter for the first time in the courtroom, because I took it and just showed it to him. And
so once again, would you say, both of you, that the system has failed? 100%. Horribly?
I mean, mistakes happen. I can see that, but we had a couple of things in place that just, it was totally against the defense. Good representation is one.
Exactly.
You had a prosecutor trying to make her name for herself, and she, because of her reputation, she was able to remove a lot of barriers that are in place. And another thing that really bothers me about the system, when you bring that up, is there's no real remedies to prevent a prosecutor from really doing it. I mean, they can be sanctioned by the Bar Association. You might get a couple of days in jail, but we're talking about 22 years after a wrongful conviction. And once we do get this overturned, what happens to her? Probably nothing. Probably not. And how many other people has she falsely convicted?
Exactly. That's the sad part about it. The system really needs to, I would say, be reviewed, and a lot of things looked over, because doing these cases, I'm just seeing so much more injustice, and to me, how lawyers and judges and prosecutors, like they're all in this clique. And it's like, it makes you feel like a prosecutor, her or he or she career is based on how many people they can prosecute, regardless, by any means necessary. I don't care what it is. We're gonna make some stuff, but we got to get that number. We got to get that number, because I got to make a name for myself, such as you said in regard to this case. And your two sons end up with this prosecutor who was making a name for herself, and just went to the extreme And to me, it's definitely the extreme when you get someone that raped 5 women. That right there. How do you even allow somebody to come in your courtroom and testify? That's what I'm saying about this system. It's so corrupt. It's just corrupt. And I'm going to say it. It's corrupt. It's politics. And you're talking about, I can understand if you're guilty, you're guilty.
Right.
I can understand that. If you do the crime, as they say back in the day, pay the time. But to purposely to take innocent lives, and now they're going on 22 years. Yes. That's something, even when they get overturned, that's 22 years. They will never get back.
We can't recover.
I don't care how much compensation that you give them. It's not enough.
It's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough.
Money ain't nothing. You know, I want my boys to be at my house when they were growing up.
Exactly.
I miss all those years. I miss the teenage years. I miss everything. You know, so and imagine all the wrongful convictions out there that they don't have nobody to fight for them.
Exactly.
The ones that we're fighting, you know, we are here to fight for them. But there's so many out there that they have to die in prison because they don't have nobody.
Nobody.
And you know, once you get that conviction, that first conviction, it's and once you ring that bell, it's damn near impossible to unring. I mean, off camera we have the boys' appellate attorney Laura Sutton, and I mean, she could tell you it's very difficult to overturn a conviction, despite what type of evidence you may have.
And that's just keeping it real. Laura, would you like to come in and explain that real quick? Thank you so much. And it's just not to discourage someone that's out there that's going for appeals. You just want to talk about the reality of it.
Well, the reality of it is very, very difficult. Once a direct appeal, there may be a shot if there are some very, very egregious errors. But it is still difficult. The vast majority of convictions are upheld. In this particular case, there really wasn't any physical evidence against the Dejesus brothers. There was nothing. But what really, really took the jury back, I'm sure, was when the prosecutor introduced some very gory photographs of the deceased in her opening statements to the jury. I mean, there had been no evidence presented to the jury at that point. They'd heard from no witnesses, but they had blown up photographs of Margaret Midkiff. First photographs, you know, when she was alive and smiling, and you know, a good-looking lady, and then photographs of her beaten body. They were horrible. They were the most horrific things I have ever seen in terms of homicide photos. And we challenged that on appeal. Generally speaking, gory photographs is not a dead band winner, as they say, but because of how they were presented and the fact that they were presented before the jury had any opportunity to hear any evidence in this case at all. And the court said that was okay. So we lost there, but that's how the jury got introduced to this case. Was, you know, and the prosecutor's inflammatory language in opening statement, looking at the faces of evil and pointing to the Dejesus brothers. And you're going to be chilled to the bone, if I can remember correctly. That's what she said. But yeah, that set the tone. And I don't know, given the horrific nature of the photographs and so forth, how much attention the jury really paid to the fact that there was no other evidence except the alleged co-defendant who said, I only raped her. They stopped her.
Wow.
And to say something about the why certain allegations about Brandon had not come in at trial, he had not been charged with any of these. These were still under investigation. He hadn't been charged with anything. So you don't have anything to impeach with. A police investigation, they're not going to allow that. I mean, when you're still in the investigatory stages, they're not going to allow that in as an impeachment. Because, you know, they haven't come to the conclusion that they want to prosecute yet.
Oh, okay, so that's the twist.
They don't have any. There's a lot of allegations out there. There's a lot of smoke around Brandon Gohagan.
Okay.
But no real fire yet.
Oh.
Not at the time of the trial.
Okay, I understand.
No, there
so
wasn't.
just a lot of he say, like.
Well, you could make, you know, and the defense tried in a way to portray. I mean, the defense was that Brandon Gohagan acted alone, but that fell on deaf ears to the jury, given his testimony, and the boys did not testify. And I'm not going to speak to whether that was a good idea or not a good idea, because given the amount of time the trial attorneys had for preparation, it probably, you know, and they would have had to have been subject to cross-examination, and I don't know that the prep time was there, even if they had been so inclined to do that. I don't know. But that was their strategy, and that's what happened. There's one other thing that I would point out with regard to the how they came about to come to the Dejesus brothers, is they did do the DNA testing and they did do those things. But once Brandon Gohagan was apprehended in the state of Florida, where he had gone, because he knew his DNA was there, he got out of Dodge. In his initial statements or in his interviews, where there was a detective in charge of the case, was Detective Harvey. And Detective Harvey really pushed the idea about the involvement of the Dejesus brothers. I don't know what his rationale was behind that, but he pushed that, and he kept planting that seed, and then, of course, Gohagan is an opportunist, so he took advantage. So, I don't know. I can't speak to that, and but I know that there was a case theory developed by the officer in charge, and the prosecutor in the case ran with it, and that's what convicted.
And that's what convicted it.
Yep.
Wow.
At least that's my.
Yeah. On the percentage, when people come with these appeals, what are the percentage of them getting overturned?
I don't know the exact percentages, but it is a low percentage.
Very low.
It's low. The affirmance rate is much higher than the reversal rate.
Now, is the longer you in, the more hard it is, or it's just flat out hard, regardless if you've been in here a year or two?
It's difficult regardless, but the fact that once you get beyond your appeal right, where the courts have to hear your issues and they have to bring oral argument and those type of situations, and the standards of review are more favorable to a defendant, the harder it is, because there's a lot of procedural barriers to post-conviction appeals too. Why didn't you raise these issues previously, and were they available at the time of your original appeal? If they were and you didn't raise them, why not? You have to show cause, you have to show prejudice to you. It is very, very difficult, and frequently litigants are procedurally barred from really, getting their cases heard on the merits once you get beyond that direct appeal. However, there's been, in more recent months, there have been some positive developments in that area where, new evidence will open doors and so forth. But the bottom line is, for the judicial system, it's not the fact of guilt or innocence. It's whether you received a fair trial. That is the focus of the judicial system. It's hard for most people to swallow that guilt or innocence doesn't matter, but that's the bottom line. It's the fairness of the proceeding that is addressed. Now, if innocence does help through the, if you have evidence of innocence and you can show, look, if the court is to look at your new evidence versus what the jury was able to review at trial and so forth, that does help. But innocence is a freestanding claim. You just don't go into court and say, "I'm innocent, let me go."
Right, exactly.
That won't swing the prison door open. Not at all.
And I understand that too. It just seemed like the system is very weak when it comes down to that, because no hardcore evidence, both of you said, no evidence whatsoever. So now we're going to go on a testimony saying they did it, and
yes,
you know, it's like, okay, they're selling themselves to a jury, making a jury believable of what they're saying, when you have to look at their character, who they are, their history, their background, and it's like, was that just totally thrown out, or did we say again that at that time you said he wasn't charged?
With these prior allegations, there were allegations about him that were floating around, but that's all they were.
That's all they were at the time.
And what I want to say too is, in addition to where people say that a confession, you know, or a defendant has confessed to a crime, is probably the most powerful evidence you can have. Right along up there is a co-defendant who gets up on the witness stand and says, I was there, I did this, but they did that. Gotcha. That is very powerful testimony to get around. Because how do you know this stuff? Well, I was there.
Gotcha.
You know, the jury's seeing this, the jury's seeing the horrific nature of the offense. They were a pretty done deal.
I want to ask you too, you know, being an appeals lawyer, that the one guy out of Detroit a month ago that was in prison for 15 years did his history, did his own investigation, and got it overturned and suing the city of Detroit police for $75 million. Is that something that your sons have tried to do, like go in and do their own research? Did you hear about that?
Well, I mean, there's a number of people in the recent past that have been released due to the fact that they found new evidence that showed either police corruption or, if not corruption, lack of, you know, professional standards and how they tested their evidence and that type of stuff that led to new trials or dismissal of cases. And even the court rules now for successive motions for relief from judgment, which is the end of the road, and that's where the Dejesus Brothers are now too. There is going to be, after January 1st, a new subsection of, you know, grounds where you can show new scientific evidence that they show, you know, point to that was not available at the time of your trials, and that's where DNA evidence will be coming in, which should play a major role there. But yes, you could. It's very difficult though to do your own investigation in prison, and it depends on the kind of case that you have. So I think the case you're referencing had to do with ballistics evidence and how due to some corruption in the police department, the firearms examiner was given different things than actually was in the case. And a lot of it is, you know, dogged determination. This was technical stuff. This was physical evidence that you could not, you know, it wasn't someone's impression. This is scientific stuff. And when the investigator came back and retested what they actually had, then he said, this isn't what I saw was given. And that blew the case wide open. Took a long time to do that, and a lot of perseverance on the part of the defendant. And also, you know, sometimes in all these cases, there's a little bit, I've had a couple clients get very angry with me when I say this, but part of the mix, you got to have a little luck. The breaks have to come your way. There's got to be the right time, the right place, the right judge, everything has got to fall into place sometimes. And that's the thing that's a little hard to gauge. But if you're asking me, yes, a lot of times, you know, the defendants can do quite a bit on their own, but they're hampered a lot. No prison inmate can do a Freedom of Information Act request. They can't. They're barred from doing that by statute. So they cannot get records. They usually have to rely on family members or friends. And frequently when you do get records from these governmental agencies, they're heavily redacted. So you see, you know, they're blacked out. I mean, a lot of important.
And they cost money.
Yes, they do. They cost money. They cost money.
And yes, my sons, like, they've been checking. I mean, they go to the law library, and this is the good thing that all these 22 years that they've been in there, they've been researching because they want to come home. You know, they've been spending all the time that they can, and all the resources that they have to study and to check the laws and check the cases, because they want to come home.
Exactly. Now, who was this guy that did a test? They said that she was stumped, and this guy, he came in and did a test stating that there was no way that is what she died from, of being stumped.
Westner Spitz?
Was that, were you talking about Werner Spitz and his?
Yes.
Okay. He disputed that. That was introduced in the course of the appellate process, but it...
That didn't help either?
No. It did not.
It was denied when we asked for the hearing.
And this is an expert,
we asked
correct?
We asked for a hearing and it was denied.
This is an expert that worked on some major case with stars?
Yes.
Yes.
And you mean and they still
No, they shut us down. Well, there was no hearing, because if you have a hearing, then sometimes people can get on the stand, there's new testimony developed and so forth and so on. And it's a very disturbing trend where evidentiary hearings are, well, let's say courts hate evidentiary hearings after the fact, because number one, you got to haul back in you have to get in witnesses, you got to set aside time frames, and then it generally, then there will be an appeal after that, regardless of what happens as a result of the evidentiary hearing. One or the other side is going to appeal, so they're time consuming and they don't particularly like them. And another thing too is a lot of people come in with witnesses that have allegedly recanted their statements at trial. Now, that brings in another whole dimension, because then usually you have to bring in an attorney to represent the recanter, because the recanter, if they swore to something under oath that is not true, could face potential perjury charges. And that's another whole kettle of fish. And it's gets really involved. And courts like to move on. I mean, the dockets are heavy enough, particularly Oakland, Wayne County, Oakland, Macomb. They're heavy enough. They want to keep the case management flow moving. They don't want to come back and spend time on stuff that they litigated 20-some years ago. They don't want to do it.
Okay, that was my next question too.
And the justice system would totally stop if we didn't have some rules of finality, because everybody would be litigating all the time. And it's the same deal with plea bargains. We prosecution offers deals so that they can circumvent trials, which take time and cost a lot more money. So.
Do you feel that they feel like, okay, we got these two guys, let's go ahead and get this done. Let's just get this over with. Once they, brought him in, let's get this over quick.
What I never understood, because they've had Gohagan right away. They had him. They had his DNA. They knew he was there. If they had the allegations about his past behaviors, that should have set up enough red flags there. Why they wanted to go after the Dejesus brothers?
Right.
And why?
Yeah.
I heard, Prosecutor Pendergast being referred to sometimes as the devil incarnate, but they made a deal with the devil when they made a deal with Brandon.
Exactly.
And once they did that, who knows?
That was sad. And it's a sad thing, but I want to ask you, and I know you can't go into detail, but how are things looking for the brothers right now? How are things looking? Are we still at a standstill, or is it looking, moving forward? Things about to happen?
We're moving in the right direction.
Moving in the right direction.
We're positively optimistic.
Okay.
Yes, the Innocent Project, one thing that they do not take cases unless they think that they're going to win.
Okay.
So
that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the time, they have the resources, they have the law students to do a lot of the legwork, but they also have the resources to provide to defendants that someone in private legal practice would not have unless their client or their client's family was able to pay for it. So that's the plus side. And the somewhat more negative side is these cases take time to investigate, and you frequently have staff turnover, particularly with student attorneys, because they graduate, they move on, and then you get another group of people that have to be brought up to speed with the case. They are supervised by licensed attorneys, and they do an excellent job. Okay. It's just, and how many cases can you handle? with a project of a certain size.
Okay.
I mean, they have a backlog of requests for case reviews. I know that probably, months and months to go through because they do very, very, they scrutinize it very, very closely before they decide to take a case on.
And we've been blessed because we have the students that, like the Innocent Clinic, when they were investigating, we have this student that he starts with us. His name is Toby Bender, and he helped us a lot, and he believed that the boys were innocent. He even went to jail and prison, and he interviewed Brandon, and he went to see my sons, and he believed that my sons are innocent, and he didn't have a good impression on Brandon when he went to see him.
Okay.
So this is somebody that he didn't know my boys, and he didn't know Brandon, but he believed, and he stayed with us. So once in a while, he send an email, and we keep an update on everything that we do.
Awesome.
And then we have Laura here that every time that we need something,
Great.
all we have to do is call her. And
I'm interested in. I hope that the desired outcome is reached because this case has always bothered me.
Yes.
It's still there. And it's something that I hope will come to a favorable resolution regardless.
Yeah,
we're definitely praying.
Yeah, and I remember, and also my sons remember that once you said when they deny the appeals, and you said the laws are always changing.
They do change, and society's perception changes, and judicial attitudes change too. I mean, the law does change. Keep looking for things that could help you.
Yeah. And the bad part is that in the meantime, we wasting time. I'm losing all these years that my boys are becoming men, and they be missing family weddings, family death, and they can't be there with us. So it's a lot, and people might think that it's no big deal. I mean, they in there, someday they will come out, but families being destroyed, and wrongful convictions are no joke. It's happening. They're out there, and it's happening more often now than before.
Oh yeah.
And people don't care. People don't care about it, and we are the only ones, family, who are fighting, and we are the only boys. So for all those wrongful convictions out there, I'm with you. So we're gonna keep on fighting.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all for coming. I'm down here from Pontiac just to be on Heart to Hearts today with Nate Frazier. This is for all the wrongful convictions. I met her when I did the wrongful conviction rally, and your heart, your spirit, your soul, just a beautiful person. And I know that spirituality, you're a very spiritual person, and you trust God, you know God, and your faith has brought you this far.
Yes.
And I just want to say to the ones that are out there watching, that are going through this, keep the faith.
Yes.
Just keep the faith and believe.
And I believe that we are fighting that. It might be like men's time, but we are fighting on God's time.
Yes.
And His time is perfect.
Yes,
His time is perfect. And there will be a time when they're going to come home, and that's what I tell my boys. Just keep the faith, because the Lord have a date, everything. He got it all set up when they're going to come home, and we're going to be reunited. So
that's right.
That's what keeps me going.
Yes.
My trust on the Lord.
Yes. So I hope that everyone to all the viewers out there that watch this, that especially you have family members that have been wrongly convicted. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of you out there have family members that are incarcerated right now that have been wrongly convicted. This is for you. Keep hope alive. Know that one day that your loved one is going to come home, and so many fighting for their kids and going to do everything that they can for their family members to come home.
Yeah.
So thank you
y para
so
todas
much.
esas personas que hablan en español, y para todas esas madres que están peleando por su persona que está en la cárcel, por favor sigan, tengan fe que todo va a llegar, y si no tienen ayuda, vayan al Proyecto Inocente, que ellos los pueden ayudar.
All right. That's for the ones in Puerto Rico?
That's for everybody that is from
the Spanish? Okay.
Yeah, they are looking.
All right.
And for my family in Puerto Rico, gracias.
All right.
I love you.
We also have her oldest son. What's your name again, sir?
Jesse.
We also have Jesse here. Jesse, you want to have something to say real quick?
Please, come on.
Okay.
Come into the system.
Jesse said, no. Come on, Jesse. Come on, just say something. Amen. Stand in the gap for your brothers today. Amen. After we hear from Jesse, we're going to close up. Amen. Glad to have you, brother.
Thank you, Nick.
Amen. And how's it been going for you, and how you've been dealing with it? Are you the oldest?
I am the oldest.
You are the oldest. How you been dealing with this?
It was very hard for me to hear what they were going through. As a family member, that makes me tear.
Yes.
But it's kind of hard to see innocence being taken away by a system that just railroaded right through the case.
Yes.
They should have allowed the time for them to prepare, and it wasn't there for them. And I just feel justice wasn't done. Justice may have been seen by some, but it wasn't done for all. And I believe that's something that we need to see more of. We need to see justice being done for everybody, not just for the people that you see on one side, both sides. Both sides should see justice.
I agree with that. So you definitely keeping your brothers in prayer and staying in contact and, keeping them. How are they spirits?
When you talk to them, their spirits are high. They believe, they believe in their innocence.
Excellent.
So they believe that they will be home. Sometimes you sit there and you talk to them, and you see they'll have that, man, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But they know in their hearts that something will be done right, and I believe that's what they see. And that vision allows them to go forward every day. And when they talk to me, that's what they talk about. You hear the enthusiasm that something's being done. And I think these new things that are coming out, it's starting to give them more grit to. I'm going to keep going forward.
Yeah, excellent.
22 years is a very long time.
Very long time.
I always say if you believe in your innocence, then them 22 years is still going to be something that's going to say I'm innocent. I'm still going to drive forward, and that's been their story since day one. Since day one, they've been saying the same thing, and I believe them.
Excellent. How you been holding your mama?
We have our conversations.
Okay.
My mom has a lot of faith.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for her faith, I think she pushes us to become better.
Excellent.
We appreciate our mom.
Amen. That's excellent. That's excellent. We fell in love with her when we first met. This beautiful spirit that she had. And just thank you once again for all y'all coming out. I know for a fact this is positive. I know for a fact this is helping someone. And I'm going to keep on doing this so the word can get out here and people can be aware of really what's going on, So thank you once again for all coming out. Thank you to the viewers for watching. I will see you all next week. This is Heart to Heart with Nate Frazier signing off.